So, you want to become a MechWarrior? Well, you are not the worst to enter these training halls. The last cadet I allowed in a cockpit smashed her fire moth into Mech Bay 4 and blew out the hip actuator. So, unless you drive like a drunken sphere pilot, you should be able to pass. While this will not be the full experience of BattleTech, you will have enough of an understanding by the end of this training to perhaps not trip over yourself and cartwheel off a cliff. So welcome to daycare, wet nose. Today you will learn the Quick-Start Rules, or QSR, of BattleTech, which are so simple even a Capellan could not mess it up. For this training, I will operate on the assumption you possess at least a beginner's box. If not, any other box, even a force pack, can be used should you also possess either the rest of what is necessary or have sufficient replacements. Before heading to the training hall and setting foot in your cockpit, a few requirements are in order. A pair of 6-sided dice, record sheets, a pencil, and figures. Any pair of 6-sided dice will do, even if it is just an app on your phone. Record sheets detail and track your mech and pilot data. There are QSR-specific record sheets, but the standard can be used instead. Should you possess laminated record sheets, a dry erase marker is better for tracking information. Easier cleanup, and they last. And should you wish to look down your nose at others like a Steiner noble, you could again use your phone to obtain record sheets or apps. Personally, I recommend Mech Factory. Now, the figurines. Plenty exist, both old and new, whether official, such as the numerous force packs, or countless third-party. If you wish to save yourself money, the rules allow proxies or stand-ins. Anything will do. A chess piece or an upside-down shot glass with an angry face to represent me. Your loving babysitter will suffice. With these items in hand, you are ready. But before we begin, a quick note. To maintain simplicity, you will only engage one drone, and not true mech warriors. Lastly, given this is not another of my schizophrenic episodes of grandeur, then you are real and you will pilot the 35-ton Kit Fox to maintain my delusion until the meds kick in. Regardless of what technologies you are using, just punch in the corresponding numbers you see to follow along in this training. Now, with that said, follow me to the training hall. Suit up, and I will see you on the field. Thank God you at least know how to power up your mech. Should you somehow fail this training, at least there will be a position in the Science Cast's IT department. For now, you can walk, but your weapon systems are locked. To begin in short, BattleTech's QSR has 3 simple phases per turn. First is initiative, to find out who acts first by rolling dice and re-rolling in case of a tie. Whoever rolls highest has the initiative for that turn, acting after the opponent who lost the roll. Let me be specific. Winning initiative is not necessarily a bad thing. Many cadets have been confused by this before. Simply put, winning initiative allows you to counterattack and outmaneuver your targets. But do not panic, wet nose. Initiative is repeated at the beginning of every new round. So just because someone like myself might pilot circles around you, does not mean you will not get a fair shot at missing as well. After confirming initiative, you and your opponent shift to the movement phase, in which you alternate turns, moving mechs, starting with whoever lost initiative. You have 4 movement options. Each movement requires movement points, or MP, located here in the top left of your record sheet. If you choose to stand still, it costs you no movement points, and neither you or your opponent receive a targeting modifier when you target someone else or they return fire. If you walk, you may spend up to the maximum number of movement points under walking when traveling to a desired space. Walking, like running and jumping, will apply an attack modifier, in this case a +1, which I will discuss in the combat phase. If you choose to run, you have roughly 50% more movement points to expend. Running applies a +2 attack modifier. Lastly is jumping. Not all mechs are equipped with jump jets, but those that are, like the baby stroller you are piloting, are able to jump, allowing you to ascend or descend environments other mechs cannot navigate. You can also jump over targets like a bullfighter to get a better shot. You have up to the maximum points under jumping to move, and it applies a +3 attack modifier. Now, as BattleTech has so much to keep track of, you need a secretary. It is advised you use different colored dice to monitor which mechs moved and how. The color of the dice does not matter, so long as you and your opponent agree. The color keeps track of movement type, and the number on the die represents the target modifier when attempting to hit your target. Traditionally, white, black, and red are used, but not necessary. However, there are also custom dice you can purchase for yourself from third-party trade hubs that provide simply all of the information necessary for movement. However, as this is QSR training, you should not need these different dice to track the different movements. Now, with that out of the way, we can see if you drive like a Capellan without a turn signal. As BattleTech often uses hex maps, you must consider which direction you are facing, which is always the direction of the mech's feet. The cost to change your facing is 1 MP per hex side. Now, try turning your mech for me 1 hex to the left. Good, you now have 6 MP left. Let's reset that. Now turn to the right 3 times. Yes. Dance for me, little fire mandrill. Next, I want you to try moving forward to Nav Alpha. The same cost of 1 MP applies when entering a new hex, as it does when turning whether forward or backward. I have reset your movement points. Now walk forward to Nav Alpha. Good enough. I see I was wise to add training wheels on your mech. One last basic detail. Walk backwards to where you started. Notice you can only walk backwards if you do not have jump jets. Speaking of which, I think you have done well enough to learn how to move with jump jets. Just do not Kobe yourself into this hillside next to me. I would hate to waste resources in the emergency that my mech's paint job was ruined by you. Jump jets offer multiple exceptions to basic movement. Do not make me regret this. I want you to first jump in the same spot. Good. Notice you only spent 1 MP? You can turn around by jumping in place and only using 1 movement point instead of walking to turn around. But remember, you get a +3 targeting modifier if you do this. Another exception is the cost of entering spaces. Terrain and other mechs interfere with movement by either increasing the cost to enter a hex in the case of terrain, or block movement like a battle mech. Also, as you just did, you can alter your facing without additional cost. Now I want you to jump to Nav Beta. Good job. You show enough promise, so you may not damage that Kitfox's hip actuator after all. And losing me Seabills. The last thing to learn about movement for now is terrain. As mentioned before, terrain applies an additional cost to enter depending on what is in the hex. Clear terrain, often unlisted on battle mats or sheets, is open field of the same level and does not cost anything more to enter. And if you fail to enter a clear space, then I will assume the only thing you can pilot is a bar stool. Light woods are annoying, nothing a mech cannot handle, though sparse trees will still slow you down. Do you see the wooded area to your right? Walk into the first hex of trees at Nav Point Charlie. Good. Now, like the closet, come out, back to Nav Point Beta. The only other example for today will be another mech. Whether friend or foe, you cannot walk into, through, or end your movement in the same space of another mech, so do not try. Also, oddly enough, mechs do not intervene with line of sight, unlike light and heavy woods. It is odd, yes, but go with it. So far, so good, rookie. You did not faceplant. Congratulations, you are better than most cubs. Now, after both pilots have finished all their movements, they may attempt to fire on their desired targets. To start, you declare what weapons you will fire. And remember, you cannot fire what you do not declare. Some weapons may have the range to hit, others not. Additional factors such as heat may limit how many or which weapons you attack with, but not to worry, as that kit fox has an excess of heat sinks, so you will not sweat and ruin your mascara. Now, first things first, ensure you have line of sight, or LOS. Line of sight is drawn from and to the center of your and your target's position. If LOS falls even the slightest bit into a hex, that hex is included in the LOS. But, should line of sight fall directly on the line between two hexes, your target chooses which of those two hexes LOS passes through. And do not forget, you do not include the hexes occupied by you and your target when drawing line of sight. Now, some targets may be more difficult to shoot, as the terrain can intervene or even block visual of a target, such as trees, hillsides, buildings, or your mom. Now, similar to the movement point costs to enter light or heavy woods, they also increase the difficulty to spot a target. Light woods are 1 point, and heavy woods are 2 points. If 3 points or more of wooded terrain intervene your line of sight, then neither you or your target can shoot the other. As I just detailed, both the light and heavy woods block your line of sight to the drone. Take a few steps back to clear your line of sight to the fire moth. Now, it's time to shoot. The drone will remain stationary, and from your position there is no intervening terrain, so this should be an easy shot for you. Hopefully. I want you to declare all three of your weapons, your ER medium laser, the UAC-5, and the LRM-5 against the drone. Both your UAC-5, or Ultra Auto Cannon 5, and your LRM-5, or Long Range Missile 5, expend ammo like any other munitions-based weapon. When you fire them, you mark down how much ammo you have spent. However you wish to track your ammo expenditure is up to you. Just make sure you and your opponent agree, of course. Remember, if you are out of ammo, that weapon is useless, so make every shot count. Again, do not worry about heat for now. Next, confirm your target is within your firing arc. As this is QSR, the firing arc is simpler than the real deal. Instead of multiple sides, you only have one, which is basically everything in front of you. A Sibco-friendly way to view it is the front three sides of your hex base is your firing arc, while everything else is not. The drone falls within your firing arc. However, should a secondary target, like myself in this instance, be standing behind you in QSR, there is nothing you can do about it. So always be on guard for stranger danger. To hit the drone, you must find the target number, or TN, then roll your dice. If the result is equal to or greater than the target number, you hit your target and are not cleaning toilets tonight. If you do not, then do not worry. Since this is training, your incompetence will be kept safely as a secret with me and the rest of the staff and your Sibco. If the target number is greater than 12, you automatically miss. If this is the case, you can retract that attack to prevent ammo expenditure, but you cannot attack another target in its place. Now, if the TN is 2 or lower, you automatically hit. Also, the order in which you resolve the weapons that hit your target is up to you. Now, to figure out that target number, I would like to introduce you to the acronym GATOR. GATOR is the best program for MechWarriors since AA. A 5-step process to conclude whether a weapon hits or not using basic math, so count on your hands, or use that calculator in your pocket that every math teacher once said no one would have. I am transferring the attack modifiers table to your HUD now. The first step is gunnery. This refers to your gunnery skill listed on your record sheet under pilot data. As you are new to even driving a mech, you probably are not a good shot. But with enough practice, you may even be as good as I am, if you are lucky. Next is attacker, referring to attacker modifier, which is based on which mode of movement you chose, as I described back in the movement phase. A brief reminder, standing still as you are the attacker, the modifier is 0. If you walked, it would be 1, ran is +2, and if you jumped, it would be +3. Next is target, referring to your target's movement modifier. Unlike Alderaan, moving targets are harder to hit. Differing from the attack modifier, the chosen movement type, a target's movement modifier is based on the number of hexes traveled from the start of the movement to the end, not the MP spent. This covers backward then forward movement as well. If the drone were to walk backwards 3 hexes, then forward 2, the final movement is counted from the drone's starting point to the hex it finished its movement in. So according to the target movement modifier portion of the chart, in this instance, the drone would have only moved 1 hex, gaining no protections. If, however, your target were to jump, then add 1 to the target movement modifier after movement. So, if the drone jumped forward 1 space, then the drone's movement would fall also between 0 and 2 hexes, thus no modifier either. But jumping is cumulative, adding 1 to its movement modifier. Now, allow me to reset the drone. Now, other is various additional modifiers, which are also cumulative. Since there are no other factors, this will remain 0. Now, the last step of this program is range, which is based on the stat of the weapon you are firing. In QSR, every weapon has 3 different ranges: short, medium, and long, since there is no minimum range. The further your target is, the more difficult it is to hit, because each range changes based on the range bracket. Short range applies nothing, medium range is 2, and long adds 4. Targets beyond a weapon's maximum range cannot be hit with it. As the drone is within your weapon's short and medium ranges, this should, hopefully, be an easy shot for you. Now remember, range is the only modifier that will change in your Gator calculations, so you do not necessarily have to recount for each weapon. Find gunnery through other first, then add range after to simplify things. As the drone is 6 hexes away, it falls within your ER medium laser's medium range, so a +2 modifier is added to that weapon. However, the drone falls within the short range of both your AC-5 and LRM-5, so those weapons do not receive a modifier. Now, with the target numbers figured out for all of your weapons, you now roll to figure out if you hit your target or I facepalm like Captain Picard. You need 5 or greater for your ER medium laser, and 3 or greater for both your UAC-5 and LRM-5. Now shoot with your ER medium laser. Not bad. I would hope you could hit the broadside of a barn. Next, fire your UAC-5. And lastly, your LRM-5. Cut it a little close, but you landed the shot. Since all of your shots hit the target, now we find where they struck. I am sending you the hit locations table now. This will be your reference for where your shots land on your targets. Again, you roll both dice for each weapon, starting with your medium laser. Good. Now your UAC-5. And your LRM-5. Alright. Now, Missiles are different from standard energy and ballistic weapons, as they often fire in clusters, signified by a bracketed letter C. Not all QSR record sheets will show brackets for weapon types, so do not worry about those unless you graduate from this training. There are multiple types of missiles for you to pay attention to, but you will only need to focus on 2 of them for now. Short-range missiles, or SRMs, and the one you are familiar with, the long-range missiles, or LRMs. Both types fire a cluster, but in different ways. First, whenever a missile attack hits you, you must determine how many missiles fired by that weapon hit the target. This is where the cluster hits table I am sending you now comes in handy. Yes, BattleTech is 90% reference, so if you can memorize these numbers, it will speed up the process greatly. We already know your LRM-5 hit, so roll again to determine how many of the LRM-5 actually land. That will suffice. Now, SRMs and LRMs differ in that LRMs are fired in groups of up to 5. For every group of missiles up to 5 per grouping that hit, you must roll to find a different hit location. Your LRM-5 is 1 grouping, so the 1 roll is all you need. If you had fired, say, an LRM-15 and 12 missiles hit the target, you would roll for 3 hit locations for the cluster of 5, 5, and 2. SRMs, on the other hand, require a new hit location for each individual missile, regardless of how many hit. Now that hits and clusters are understood, we can record the damage you dealt to the drone. All you need to do is fill in the same number of bubbles equal to the damage you dealt to the target you hit. Reference the damage column of your weapons on your record sheet. The ER medium laser deals 7 damage, so fill in that many bubbles in the drone's right torso. Your AC-5 deals 5 damage to the drone's left leg. And lastly, the 3 damage dealt by your missiles is applied to the drone's right arm. This is all it takes to record damage for a mech in QSR, as the internal structure of a mech is not a factor. Moving on, what if the damage you dealt exceeds that of a component? There is a simple process for this. First, ask if the component has any armor left. If it does, then mark off armor bubbles until all damage has been recorded, or the component in question has no armor left. If this be the case, the component and all the weapons and equipment in it are destroyed. Regardless of either outcome, you can then ask the second question, is there damage remaining? If a component is destroyed, but there is still damage to apply, then that damage transfers to the next component, which I will explain in just a second. First, in the case of either or both your left or right torsos are destroyed, then so too are the respective arms. If your center torso or head are destroyed, then your mech is destroyed. If one of your legs are destroyed, then you cannot move or change your mech's facing for the rest of the game. You can still fire, at least, even though you resemble the standing turret from MechWarrior 2. And an important note to remember, this is exclusive to QSR, so in the field during a true game of BattleTech, the loss of a leg is not as grave a factor. Now, the last lesson for QSR training is how damage transfers into your mech. These giant glorified tanks we drive can survive the loss of limbs. However, damage that would destroy a limb or was dealt to one already destroyed always transfers coreward. What I just relayed to your HUD is the damage transfer diagram. Damage to or from destroyed arms and legs always goes to their respective torso, and both left and right torsos travel to the CT, or center torso. Again, should a mech be destroyed, whether by the destruction of the head, the center torso, or in the case of QSR, both legs, then remove the mech from the map at the end of the phase it was destroyed. Now, to ensure that you understand all of the lessons I have taught you about QSR training, I have unlocked all weapons and the drone is live. To complete your QSR training, destroy the drone. Do not fail me. I must admit, you have done well in reaching the end of this training. Understand, combat here in the Inner Sphere is not always honorable. True mech warriors must be ready for combat at any given time. However, upon completing this task and defeating the drone, you now understand a simple and timely form of BattleTech, whether alone with the voices, other pilots, or to recruit new ones. If you want to learn more, then return to the training hall and see me for the full experience. Besides that, return to Mech Bay 4 and power down. Oh, and good job, Cadet. I wish you luck on the battlefield. And remember, enlightenment is our gift.